Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says his country is ready to meet Russian officials to discuss peace, but only if Russia agrees to an immediate ceasefire to start tomorrow. It's the opposite position of President Putin, who is taking in a 2 a.m. press conference from the Kremlin. Putin ignored international calls for a ceasefire and said he'd speak to Ukraine directly in talks hosted in Turkey. Just an hour ago, Russia launched another drone strike in Kyiv, so the ceasefire very much not on the cards as we speak. So peace talks closer at hand, or just as evasive as they've been since the war began? Well, joining us now is Pavlo Kukta, the former acting minister of the economy in Ukraine. Pavlo, thank you for giving us your time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We seem to be at yet another impasse, Pavlo. Ukraine saying, look, happy to sit down and talk on Thursday in Turkey, but only if you agree to a ceasefire that begins tomorrow. But President Putin has got completely different ideas. He's saying that that ceasefire has to be negotiated at that peace negotiation table on Thursday.
That is true. I would think both sides are kind of playing hardball at this moment. Right, so pushing for, let's say, short-term maximalist goals, with Ukraine pushing for stopping any kind of fighting, at least in theory, and Putin pushing for continuing to do what he wants while talking now to please all the major powers that are now putting pressure to end this war. And obviously it has been the US, the primary player in the last few months. Europe has kind of upped its ante a little bit, and now it seems China is in the mix as well, because we've seen that Mr. Xi Jinping communicated to Putin that they would like to see the war over. So what is encouraging, perhaps, what I think and hope is encouraging, is that the major powers are finally putting more and more pressure to actually end the bloodshed. Now, no one ever said it's going to be easy, so we're seeing that it's not an easy thing to do.
Do you think it's a genuine offer from President Putin to sit down for peace negotiations? In his speech at 2 a.m., he was talking about getting to the roots of the problem, the roots of the disagreements between the two countries. Do you think it's a genuine offer, or do you think it's a stalling offer? Because essentially, he's not said no to the ceasefire, but he's kind of put a different offer on the table.
Look, Russia has a rather traditionally cloak and dagger, let's say, approach to diplomacy, and it has been like that since forever. And we in Eastern Europe know that quite well, actually. So it's not like it's genuine or not. It's never like that with them. It's simultaneously genuine and stalling. If they see that it would benefit them to stall negotiations, prolong them, and play their game, they will do it. If they see that it will benefit them to actually make a deal, they will make a deal. As simple as that. That's how it always works with them.
Do you think there is a danger for President Zelensky right now? If he says, look, no peace talks unless you agree to a ceasefire, he might be seen as the person who's getting in the way of serious peace negotiations.
Yes, there is always a potential danger of that. But frankly speaking, my personal opinion is that it would be nice to talk anyway. Of course, it would be nice to push Russia to at least agree to some kind of ceasefire. But we also have to realistically understand that it will probably be unimplementable immediately. 2,000 kilometers of the front line, and essentially soldiers there mostly will not even know about the ceasefire, because there is jamming, there is spoofing. They will continue shooting.
So Pavlo, do you think that President Zelensky should attend those talks on Thursday in Turkey, regardless of whether Russia has agreed to this ceasefire?
Oh, I'm not actually sure. Everyone keeps talking about Putin and Zelensky talking directly there already on Thursday. I'm not sure that's in the cards. I'm not sure that would even be a good idea. Perhaps a good idea would be to actually restart talks at the delegations level before the leaders sit down, right? So that there is actually something more specific for them to discuss, rather than having to start the conversation from scratch. And I think maybe that's where we'll get to eventually, when we get through all these, negotiation and diplomatic maneuvers.
Pavlo, it's been 3 years, and of course, from the very beginning, people have been trying to think of a way to bring peace, to end this bloody war. Can you see common ground that Ukraine and Russia can reach in order to get the war to end?
In a way, yes. It's not going to be an end of the tension or conflict or even a hybrid war, let's say. But I certainly see a common interest, certainly among the people on both sides who are dying massively. Less so among the leaders and the elites, but still there, to at least downsize this back to the hybrid war it was. Because this open war is extremely devastating. It's killing. I don't think the underlying conflict between Russia and Ukraine, underlying tension with Russia essentially wanting to take over Ukraine or kind of putting it out of the game, and Ukraine needing to survive, I don't think that has been resolved or that can be resolved right now in the current circumstances. But I think that this open warfare, the bloodshed and the death of thousands every week really can end, yes.
Pavlo, thank you for giving us your time. We really appreciate it. Pavlo Cichocki there, the former acting minister of the economy in Ukraine. The total number of the coalition of the willing are coming down very strongly today. They're all speaking with what seems a unified voice. We've had Prime Minister Tusk, we've had Chancellor Merz, we've had many from the coalition of the willing saying first ceasefire, then talks. Now, there's added pressure as we have been led to believe that Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, is going to be visiting Turkey from the 14th to the 16th of May. That includes that Thursday of that proposed sit-down in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine. Do you feel that this amount of pressure is going to have to force Vladimir Putin to accept this ceasefire? Or do you expect that we're going to hear nothing from the Kremlin in the next 8 to 12 hours?
If the words are followed with deeds, then we can hope for the better. But and I like the visit Saturday in Kyiv of the 4 European leaders. It balanced nicely the Victory Day celebrations in Moscow with not only the Chinese leader but some of the European leaders. The visit showed Ukraine is not alone. The visit also underlined the transatlantic coordination. You remember this phone call of the 5 leaders to Donald Trump. So this is not kind of competition between Europe and the US. We are on the same page. This is all, this is very good. But on the other hand, if you listen to the news conference, 2 journalists asked fundamental questions. First was about what exactly sanctions would be put in place Monday if Russia fails to ceasefire, and the other question was about the military mission of NATO countries in Ukraine. And actually, there were no answers, only very general, like there is still no consensus among the coalition of willing, how exactly progress on sanctions on one hand, and on the military mission on the other hand. Ceasefire, when you have almost 2,000 kilometers of a front line, half of it active with Russia, half of it passive, potentially active with Belarus. If it's high intensity conflict, ceasefire is a very complicated animal. How to monitor and verify whether the ceasefire is respected. We've seen it since 2014 after the Minsk agreements. Almost every day, Russia would accuse Ukraine and vice versa on violating violating the ceasefire. We had a OSCE mission in place back then. The mission tried to somehow, define what really happened, but failed on many occasions. Now I don't see any, unfortunately, and this is also a sign how the world order security system degraded. I don't see any international player, both Russia and Ukraine, would respect and rely and agree to play this verification monitoring responsibility. Russia will definitely not recognize NATO countries' troops as a referee or kind of independent judge.
And of course, the US has put itself out that it would not be considering that role as well. Bartosz Cichocki, thank you so much for giving us your time, former Polish ambassador to Ukraine.